Welcome back to Red Card. I'm your host, Anthony Totera. Once again, thanks to Danny Dichio, first goal scorer in TFC history, joining us. Off the top of the show, we talked about grassroots issues, coaching, all sorts of other things in MLS. Thanks again to Danny for joining us. Joining us right now from the Big Apple, New York City, one of our favorites, a guy that is never shy to speak his mind, Simon Borg of MLSsoccer.com. Simon, welcome.
Anthony, finally emerging from 2 feet of snow, but good to be on.
Well, I'm glad that you're safe and sound and your family's okay because, as a matter of fact, Simon, I actually sent a text to my good buddy, Sasho Sarowski, head coach of Maryland there, and I asked if he was okay Sunday night, and he says, thank God we're all okay, 30 inches, but we're good, and we've spent a lot of family quality time. So I'm glad that you're safe and sound.
Let's be honest, Anthony. The folks in Wisconsin, in Montreal, they're all laughing at us and saying, oh, come on, you're complaining for 2 feet? I mean, we had it easy compared to other places.
Absolutely. Simon, let's get right to it. Let's talk about the off-season moves. Let's start with the 3 Canadian franchises. Let's start right here home in TFC. I was at the first media day yesterday in TFC land. Drew Moore, Clint Irwin, Jovinko, Beitashour, on and on. It looks like, again, TFC have been crowned the off-season champs. I like what they did this year. I forgot to mention Will Johnson as well. I like what they did. I'm concerned about this road trip to begin the season, that coach Greg Vanney is on the hot seat. And if he doesn't come back, at least in my mind, with 3 wins, he could be done. Your thoughts?
I think they are. I think it's them and Portland Timbers who have won the offseason so far in terms of how they've upgraded their squads. They clearly went veteran, that could be a good thing, because to navigate that kind of road trip to start the season, having that veteran experience, knowing how to manage your body, knowing how it is to travel, I think that could pay dividends for them, knowing how to keep a team together during a pretty difficult time. But again, you look at the road trip, yes, road trip is going to be tough, but then you also have all the home games then that come back to back to back. So the squad itself, I think, is pretty strong. It's going to be good for them to have so many players coming back, and that was probably one of their big missions, and they've said that. They wanted to keep a little bit of continuity from season to season. That hasn't been the case with Toronto FC in the past, and they've upgraded with some absolute quality signings. Will Johnson, Michael Bradley, they go back a long time. They're 2 competitors. To have them both on the same team is going to up the edge on Toronto FC. So I think they have absolutely upgraded, and I think we're going to see better things out of Josie Altidore this year. So all in all, when you look at the back line, I think fullbacks are going to be fine. They're reprising the Steven Beitashour, Justin Morrow combination that did San Jose Earthquakes so well a few years back. Center back situation, to me, is still the one that needs to be resolved. We'll see if they get any closer. Obviously, they're already at 27 rostered players of 28 spots available. So I'm not sure if that concern, which was a concern last year, has been totally addressed.
The Whitecaps adding Bolaños, I like that. I like what Carl Robinson and his management group have done, not gone crazy, going after some high-priced talent, really settling in with the guys they believe in, and I think they could go a very long way this year again.
I agree. I think Christian Bolaños is going, if you're not familiar with his game, this guy is a game changer. But, to me, he's also in the mold of the Pedro Morales types. And so, a little bit, slower, but very calculated in what he does. But he's a phenomenal assist man. Despite him being a little bit, slower, his speed is not his game. He's so deceptive. And he knows how to deliver a cross. And I think Octavio Rivero, he really was missing that last year. So to have a guy of the quality of Bolaños, and then Pedro Morales is going to be their biggest acquisition. If they can get the Chilean playmaker back healthy and he can play a full season, that might be the biggest acquisition of the year. But to have 2 playmakers potentially on the field at the same time, feeding guys like Kekuta Mana and Octavio Rivero, I think it looks fantastic for Vancouver.
Montreal Impact finally get the answer they've been waiting for. Didier Drogba on his way back, honoring the contract. I got to tell you, it leaves a sour taste in my mouth, this charade, this game that Drogba played with Joey Saputo, who I think is one of the best owners in MLS, and with the fans of Montreal, who are fantastic. And I think the Impact are going to struggle. Enzo Conchina off to Bologna. Paolo Paccioni, the fitness coach, gone. A lot of changes. Nigel Reo-Coker gone. On and on. A lot of guys have left that squad, and I think they're going to have a lot of trouble adjusting with a lot of newcomers coming in.
Well, I think the Drogba thing is a little unsettling, but at the same time, he is such a unifying force. When you hear Patrice Bernier saying that he texted with Drogba, and Drogba's message back to him is, we're all in it together. Drogba's in Qatar. He's getting fit for the season, and he'll join the team in February. But yeah, it is a little unsettling in that Joey Saputo, the owner, was asked, does he expect Drogba to be here until the end of the year? His contract obviously runs from January to December, and Saputo was not committal on that response. And so, does it have a chance to be unsettling this year? Absolutely. But again, when you see what the Drogba influence has on the team, I think Montreal can raise their level to do things that, again, we didn't think they were capable of last year, and they did it.
Another signing today by the LA Galaxy, signing veteran Belgian defender Van Dam. I love what Bruce Arena has done this offseason, bringing back Mike McGee, Jeff Larentowicz, Dan Kennedy, who I think is going to have an outstanding year. I think he's going to have a year like he did when he was with Chivas USA, where he had no one in front of him. I love this squad. It's a veteran squad. It's an older squad, but Bruce Arena loves his vets. And I think mixed in with a couple of youngsters, this is the team for me that I see coming out of the West.
Look, I hope for their case, this helps them get Champions League. And you can argue that maybe in some spots, having that veteran guile to deal with some situations that you deal with in Champions League is what they were missing in past years. But I think the question here is going to be, have they gone too old in terms of average age across their squad and what their starting 11 could be? So I think the verdict is still out there, whether this is going to work over the long haul of an MLS season. Again, if Champions League is the goal, they might have struck it rich here with getting these quality signings and the ones that are rumored to be coming in. But again, can this kind of squad last with all the travel and all the the dog days of summer when those come? How will they be able to cope? So I think it remains to be seen where these moves leave the Galaxy.
Let's talk about the two New York teams. Let's start with the Red Bulls. Dax McCarty back in the fold. Love this guy. Heart and soul, passionate. He brings it all out there each and every time. This guy, to me, I'll never understand why Jurgen Klinsmann would never give him a sniff. That's another story for another day. But I also tweeted out about a week ago about a hot rumor that my source had told me about to watch out for. If Montreal wasn't going to get Drogba back, it was between Montreal, New York City FC, and TFC for Marco Borriello. But I found out, as a matter of fact, this morning early from a source I trust, in a guy that has joined us before, Leonardo Molinelli, telling me that inquiries have been made from New York Red Bulls about Marco Borriello. Your thoughts?
Well, right now their roster is full, so they would have to make a move to open up a spot for him. But I think Jesse Marsch, just listening to him speak in this preseason, he really believes they had a good thing going last year, and obviously it got them the Supporters' Shield, the best record in the regular season. And what they did in the offseason, you saw, they signed 7 homegrown players, which never been seen before. They really wanted to upgrade in terms of just having a base that can learn from the starting 11. Their starting 11 is going to be intact. It's going to be back. But some criticized Jesse Marsch for, hey, did you stick with your starting 11 a little too much over the course of the season? So he has some fresh young legs to bring in to learn the ropes. But I think we're going to see very much the same team that he had last year. I think Bradley Wright Phillips, as their central striker, had a fantastic season last year. He worked as hard as I've seen any player in MLS work, and Jesse Marsch got that out of him. So I don't think they're going to go away from Bradley Wright Phillips just yet. And let's not forget, they have a kid, Anatola Bang, a young Cameroonian, who, when called upon, he is a handful to deal with for teams. I'd like to see him get a little more time. And then Gonzalo Veron, he's their big DP, signed last year. They eased them in, and Jesse Marsch came out just today saying that he expects big things out of Gonzalo Veron, as well as Sean Wright Phillips, who they just signed as well. So I think the core of last year is really going to be what continues to do it for them. And then all these homegrowns that they have on the roster are really there for development, and I think we'll see the best of them then in 2017.
New York City FC, we know what Pirlo brings to the table, Villa, on and on, but I'm looking for a big breakout year by the young man, Patrick Mullins. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and I think when you have David Villa in front of you, I think it's always going to be hard to make sure you get the chances that you want under goal. But I think with all the forward combinations they had last year, I thought the Mullins-David Villa partnership actually was the best one. Now we have Kyrie Shelton, who was a high draft pick last year, a lot of speed. He's on the U.S. Prospective Olympic team if they can make it through. He's also now in the mix again. I still think they need a hold-up striker. So Mullins is good, but he doesn't really bring that to the game. So I think they must be still on the market for that. But what they've done thus far in the offseason is they've gone younger. Last year, I think we saw them do what LA is kind of doing this year. They went after experienced players, guys who have experience in La Liga, like Iraola. There was a Calle, the Colombian left back, who really couldn't sustain the MLS level. And they were kind of slower and a little bit older, and I think they thought that technique was going to take them through. You had Grabavoy as well. Grabavoy has since moved on, and it didn't work out. And the moves they made thus far have been on the younger side. So it's a team that have gotten younger. They know they have Frank Lampard and Andrea Pirlo, and they need young legs around them. They picked up Mikey Lopez earlier on Tuesday, and I think he's a phenomenal player. He didn't get really a chance in Kansas City. So I think they realize that they need to be young, they need to be dynamic. That's what's going to have success in MLS for them, especially when we saw what they had last year.
Simon, you got to feel for the Philadelphia Union fans. These fans have been to each and every game, supported this team through thick and thin, through some off-season drama stories that we heard about a former coach, on and on. I have a feeling once again they're going to miss the playoffs, they're going to struggle, and this to me concerns me, especially if I'm in the head offices in New York and MLS, because Philadelphia is an important market, as well as Chicago Fire. There is another important market, two big cities, two cities that understand the game and love it, and I have a feeling they're both going to struggle again. Your thoughts?
Here's why I disagree with you, Anthony. It's because of who is now running these two teams. And you have new management in place with both of them. So in Chicago, you have Nelson Rodriguez, a former MLS executive. And by the way, the former MLS executives who have moved on, look what they've done with their teams. Tim Bezbachenko in Toronto, Ali Curtis with the Red Bulls. I think Nelson, I've worked with him personally. I know him. I think his vision for what he wants to do, he will not allow that team to fail. So I think Chicago are going to be on the up and up. There's a plan there, and I think it's going to be exciting times in Chicago. And then you look at Philadelphia. Ernie Stewart has been on the job now for just a couple weeks. They have 8 spots left to fill in their roster. A lot of big moves possible, and they have a decent core to build on, including Andre Blake, who I think is one of the best goalkeepers, young goalkeepers in the entire world. So I think there is a lot to work with in Philly. I trust a guy like Ernie Stewart, who's a very serious executive, saw what he can do. He showed us what he can do in Holland with the type of talent he recruited, where he took Azet Alkmaar and how high he brought them up that table in Holland. And I think if you give these two executives, Nelson and now Ernie Stewart, enough time, they are going to leave an imprint, and I think as early as this year.
Last two clubs before we let you go, Orlando and DC United. Let's talk about DC United. A devastating blow. Bill Hamid out for a very, very long time. On trial is the former TFC keeper. Chris Konopka, and also I believe Paulo Torneghi of Vancouver Whitecaps is there. Two solid number twos, but not a real number one. I think they're going to struggle. Ben Olsen is going to have his hands full. Then Orlando City. I think that the pressure is going to be on them massively because the honeymoon is over. I'm hoping that Kaká and the Canadian sensation Kyle Larin can really try and push and get this team into the playoffs. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you on DC, Anthony. When you look at what they've done in the offseason so far, I don't know that they've upgraded their roster significantly. I think their back line, Steve Birnbaum, Bobby Boswell now another a year older. He's experienced and has done very well in this league. But you wonder if they have enough depth in the back, especially when you have your big goalkeeper going down. And then the midfield, I feel, when you lose Perry Kitchen, you've lost a big piece. And I don't know that they've done enough to upgrade there. But again, they still have a couple roster spots themselves to fill. Up top, you're basically dependent on Fabian Espíndola. They have to make a signing up top with someone who can threaten. Otherwise, DC could be bounced early in this Champions League. They face Querétaro. That's where they're lucky. They face Querétaro, the Mexican team, who's one of the strugglers thus far in the early part of the Mexican season. I think DC has some concerns. Orlando, I think they finished the season very strong, obviously. They won 5 games in a row. They put themselves in position, and I think they had a very good core. I don't know that there's too much I would tweak with Orlando. I would just give them some time, and now that we're going to have Kevin Molino back, he's a playmaker, a really elusive player. He was gone all of last year practically with an ACL situation. He's going to be back, and their team is young. They're dynamic, and I think they can come back. And with the confidence they had about how they ended last year, I think they can take the league a little bit by storm to start this year. And it's the start that hurt them. If we're honest, and I think if they can rectify that this year and get some better results at home. They threw away so many results at the end of games last year. But if they can now get over the hump, they're no rookies anymore. I think they can do well. Their roster's pretty solid.
Simon, it's always a pleasure, always a blast having you on, my man. We're going to connect in about a month's time, just about kickoff for the first MLS game of the year, and we'll make our predictions, who will get to the final, who will win it all, who will be MVP. Love to have you on once again when we get closer. But again, really appreciate you making time out of your busy schedule, my friend.
Absolutely, Anthony. You can always count on me. Love to be on. Thanks.
You're a class act. Simon Borg of MLSsoccer.com. Love having this guy on. He is a must follow on Twitter. What a great guy Simon Borg is. We'll take a quick commercial break, and then we're either going to wrap it up or we're going to see what my producer, my main man, Sean Truckle, says. If we have enough time for the Jovinko piece. If not, then we'll play it on our next show. We'll come back and we'll let you know here on Red Card.